industry peers. I mean, really, I can't even say that. Like, I grew up looking up to him. He was ahead of me in the game. I'm kind of waiting for more details to come out because it's just a very disturbing report, just accidentally this. But I don't know. You kind of caught me at a loss for words and kind of reflecting on my own memories. Malcolm was like the first former child actor that my mother even let me go out with late at night past 11 p.m. And I had a very close relationship with both him and Michelle Thomas. May they both rest in peace. So please remember him as a poet, a Grammy Award-winning musician, and an actor who did a lot more than just star on a sitcom when he was a kid.
Nobody expected this. When the news came out that Malcolm Jamal Warner had passed away, it felt different. Not just because he was part of so many childhood memories, but because of how sudden, quiet, and heavy it all felt. Malcolm wasn't just another actor on television. He was Theo Huxtable. He was the character who brought warmth, intelligence, humor, and heart into living rooms around the world. For many of us, Theo wasn't just a role on a script. He was the one we could relate to. He was the older brother figure.
Onto the tragic death of beloved actor Malcolm Jamal Warner, who authorities say drowned while on vacation with his family in Costa Rica.
The one who made mistakes but always found his way back. The one who made you feel less alone. And then, just like that, he was gone. The tributes started pouring in from fans, co-stars, directors, and producers. Social media filled with old clips and favorite episodes. People wrote about how Theo made them feel seen, how Malcolm's performance made growing up just a little easier. But in the middle of all those words of love, one tribute stood out.
Like the real world.
Well, it's a lot tougher than I thought it was. But you know what? So am I.
It came from someone unexpected, Jaleel White, better known as Steve Urkel. He didn't release a polished statement. He didn't post a long public note written by a manager. Instead, what he shared was raw, personal, and so real that it shook fans deeply. Authorities reported that Malcolm had drowned while on vacation with his family in Costa Rica. The details left everyone stunned. He was found unresponsive near a pool.
Like the real world.
Well, it's a lot tougher than I thought it was. But you know what? So am I.
Officials listed it as a drowning, and there was no mention of foul play, no confirmed medical condition. Just a sudden, unexplainable loss. For fans, that didn't make sense. Malcolm wasn't reckless. He wasn't known for wild behavior. He was strong, experienced, and careful. The lack of answers made the tragedy even harder to accept. This wasn't one of those celebrity stories you scroll past on your phone and forget about. This one stayed. It hit in a place deeper than the headlines because we hadn't just lost an actor.
Was like the first former child actor that my mother even let me go out with late at night past 11 p.m. And I had a very close relationship with both him and Michelle Thomas. May they both rest in peace. So please remember him as a poet, a Grammy Award-winning musician, and an actor who did a lot more than just star on a sitcom when he was a kid.
We had lost someone who had been a part of our families, our homes, and our own growing up. Malcolm Jamal Warner will always be remembered as Theo Huxtable, but he was so much more than that. He was thoughtful, intelligent, soulful. He cared about stories with depth. He was an actor, musician, poet, and creator. As Theo, he represented the smart, emotional older brother figure. He was the one who didn't always have the answers, but who always tried. And for millions of viewers, he was proof that it was okay to stumble, to learn, and to grow.
The height of the show, when I was a teenager, and people would ask me, well, what's it like, being successful? And even then I said, well, I can't really measure, success with this show. It won't be until I'm 40, 50, 60 years old, having worked consistently as an actor and as a director, will I be able to look back on my career and say, I've been successful. So I feel, now, like, yeah, I'm working consistently. I'm doing the kind of work I want to do. I'm a creative person. I'm a writer, I'm an actor, I'm a director, I'm a musician, I'm a poet. Like, I'm all of that. And I finally got to a place where I've been able to accept all of that, or rather embrace all of that, and really accept the title of being an artist.
We trusted him in that role. And over time, we trusted him as a person, too. So when the silence around his passing settled in, it felt like losing a part of ourselves as well. Among the countless tributes, Jaleel White stood out. He posted a black and white picture from the 1990s of himself and Malcolm backstage somewhere. They were young, relaxed, arms around each other's shoulders. They looked like real brothers, not just Hollywood acquaintances. The caption broke hearts. You were the only one who knew what it really felt like to smile for cameras while breaking inside. To carry a show and still feel invisible. I never said thank you enough for being my shelter when I needed it. I still hear your voice telling me to hold on. This one hurts more than anyone will ever know. This wasn't a celebrity tribute written for the public eye. It was a letter, a confession, a message soaked in love, pain, and regret. Fans felt the weight immediately. One person wrote, "This isn't a tribute. This is guilt. This is grief. This is love." Another said, "This sounds like a man who never got to say what he needed to while Malcolm was still alive." They were right. Jaleel is private. He rarely shares emotional posts. For him to say something like this meant it came from a place of deep, unshakable pain. To understand Jaleel's words, you have to look back at the late 1980s and early 1990s. Both Malcolm and Jaleel were young black actors, carrying entire shows on their shoulders. The Cosby Show and Family Matters weren't just TV hits. They were cultural landmarks. Malcolm as Theo, Jaleel as Steve Urkel. They weren't just characters, they were symbols. They brought families together. They made people laugh. They carried the pressure of being seen as role models when they were still just kids figuring out life themselves. Behind the cameras, it wasn't easy. Fame carried expectations. The pressure to stay perfect was relentless. And back then, there weren't many support systems for young black actors dealing with that kind of spotlight. That's where their bond came in. They leaned on each other in ways the public never saw. Their paths crossed at award shows, youth campaigns, press events. But off camera, they became each other's safe space. They made late-night phone calls, vented about network pressure, and shared fears about what would happen when the shows ended. When Jaleel was mocked for being just Urkel, it was Malcolm who reminded him he was more than that. When Malcolm struggled to get his music career noticed, it was Jaleel who encouraged him to keep creating. They weren't just TV peers. They were brothers in survival, but like many friendships, their bond eventually began to fade. There was no big fight, no betrayal, just time doing what it does, pulling people apart. After the peak of their careers, they went down very different paths. Malcolm stepped back from sitcom fame. He focused on music, poetry, and directing. He wasn't chasing the spotlight anymore. He wanted depth and freedom. Jaleel, on the other hand, was fighting hard to prove he wasn't just Steve Urkel. That role had made him famous, but it also trapped him. For a while, they still checked in. They'd text, cross paths at events, maybe catch up briefly, but over time, even that faded. Missed calls, unanswered messages, and eventually silence. According to some close friends, Malcolm may have felt that Jaleel was still chasing validation from an industry that never truly appreciated them. And Jaleel may have felt that Malcolm was shutting people out. The last phone call came after the loss of a mutual friend. It wasn't a deep conversation, just small talk about family and plans to catch up. But deep down, they both probably knew it wouldn't happen. When Jaleel later wrote, "I should have called back," it wasn't just guilt. It was grief mixed with regret, the kind that stays with you forever. The funeral wasn't publicized. It was private, quiet, and intimate. Jaleel showed up, not as a celebrity guest, but as a friend carrying regret and grief. Witnesses say he kept to himself, but at one point he broke down. The weight on him was clear. It wasn't just sadness, it was everything left unsaid. Malcolm's sister approached Jaleel afterward and told him, "Malcolm always spoke fondly of you. He never had a bad word." That small moment offered some peace, even if only for a second. both Malcolm and Jaleel spent their early years trapped in what many call the golden cages of their iconic roles. For Malcolm, he was always Theo Huxtable. For Jaleel, he would forever be Steve Urkel. At first, it was a blessing. But as time went on, it became a burden. Malcolm worked hard to branch out. He acted in dramas, wrote poetry, and created music. But casting directors and the public still saw the Cosby Kid. And when the Cosby scandal broke years later, the weight of that association crushed him even more. Jaleel's struggle was even heavier. Urkel wasn't just a role, it was a pop culture machine. He couldn't escape it. Every attempt to reinvent himself circled back to the suspenders, the glasses, the high-pitched voice. Hollywood wouldn't let him grow past it. They both carried invisible scars from that pressure. And while the world only saw polished appearances, behind the scenes they were men longing for acknowledgement that they were more than the roles that defined them. In his later years, Malcolm became quieter. He showed up for select projects, then disappeared again. At first, people thought he was just being private, focusing on personal life. But friends noticed the changes: missed birthdays, unanswered calls, health issues whispered about but never confirmed. It wasn't just distance. It was a kind of fading. Sometimes silence isn't peace, it's pain. And then came the drowning. Jaleel's tribute wasn't just about mourning a friend. It was about mourning a chance. The chance to say what needed to be said while there was still time. His words were heavy because they carried love, regret, and unfinished conversations. And maybe that's the real message here. This story isn't just about two actors from the 90s. It's about all of us. About checking in, about showing up, about not letting silence be the last thing between us and the people we care about. Malcolm gave us laughs, lessons, and resilience. He deserved flowers while he was here. The least we can do now is honor him by remembering what he stood for: connection, truth, and heart. Because in the end, this isn't only about Hollywood. It's about life. It's about making sure the people who matter know it while they're still here.